You just, mentioned Tony Hughes there, I guess, in all the staff moves that you did make, I guess how important was it to keep him on staff with the recruiting ties that he has in the state?
I can tell you in terms of my discussions with full-time coaches, he was the first one I spoke to about the need to retain him here and how much assistance he could give me. And so, I think I talked about, obviously, I had a conversation with Brad Peterson to come back in a pseudo chief of staff role. The guy was a former high school head coach in the state and won a lot of games and had worked here over 3 different staffs. To have him back has been incredibly beneficial. And in terms of my conversation with the full-time coaches who were on the staff at the time, Tony Hughes was the first person I spoke to. I wanted to have him here.
Yeah.
What did you think of Kevin Barbet, and what made you want to bring him on staff, and what do you think he'll do for this team?
Yeah, obviously we've vetted a lot of coaches, really good coaches for the offensive coordinator position. And I think the one thing that I've told this before, but it stood out with me because I identified with it, is probably the first question we asked any potential candidate was, all right, tell me what is your offensive identity? Who do you want to be schematically, personnel? And simply put, he said, well, show me who our best 11 players are, then I can tell you better. Right? Because ultimately the job of a coach is to identify who your best players are, who your most explosive players are, and then put them in a position to maximize their skill set and maximize their ability to be successful. And so to talk to a candidate who, right, has a small enough ego or willing to put that aside to go, it has nothing to do with me really. It's really, our job is to identify the best players and then build the scheme, build our identity around them. That's incredibly refreshing because I happen to believe that that's our philosophy on defense too. Right? Everyone talks 3-3-5 and what we do. We try to figure out who our best 11 players are, and then we try to start building the defense around what those guys do best. All right, we got some really good football players here on the defensive side. Buki Watson, I looked at the stats yesterday, right? We finished with the top 2 tacklers in the SEC, and I think Buki probably up there in terms of inside linebackers for sacks. Well, it's because he's a really good football player, and when he blitz him, he usually makes good things happen living in the backfield. So we emphasize that skill set with him. Well, we expect to do the same thing on the offensive side of the ball. Figure out who our most explosive players are, get the ball in their hands, right? Maximize space so they can do what they do. And obviously we got the ultimate distributor in Will Rogers to do that. And so we're excited to see what Coach Barbet builds here this spring.
John?
Zach, I remember after the Reliant Quest Bowl when you revealed to us that Matt Brock was calling plays in the game, and now obviously he ended up getting the job as your DC. Were you ever considering anyone else for the position? And how easy of a hire was it made for him? What do you hope he brings to this program in that role with you?
Yeah, I think for those of you guys who probably don't know Matt as well as I do, or the other coaches in the building, I think first and foremost, the last 3 years, he was kind of my right-hand guy on defense in terms of after I got to know him, develop a trust, realized philosophically the things that we think are so important to the defensive side of the ball and the things we like to do schematically. It was just kind of a natural fit. And it's been that way with a lot of the other guys too. I mean, Darcel McBath on the back end, right? Handing off those play calling duties on game day for me. Our initial plan was, hey, I'm gonna try to keep calling it just because that's what we've been doing all year. And as the new added responsibilities of being the head coach piled on, I just decided, hey, I don't think I'm gonna do as good a job at this as you. And so, well, with a couple weeks leading up to the game, or maybe about a week to game time, I just told him, hey, I think you need to operate as you're gonna call it, and we're gonna move it with that as a plan. And obviously, for those of you guys who don't know Matt, anything he's doing, right? Anything worth doing is worth overdoing, right? So he prepared to the max, just as he's always done. And obviously, he called a phenomenal game. I told him afterwards, I actually think he probably called a more disciplined game than I would have, because usually after a couple first downs, there's going to come a reckless blitz in there or something, and he held off from that from time to time. And so I think he called a phenomenal game. Obviously, I did not want to be taking credit for that afterwards. I mean, the players go out there, they execute, made the plays, and he was the one calling the defense. And in terms of when I was the name head coach, who I knew I was going to make my defense coordinator, no, there was no other person in mind until he told me no. Unfortunately, he didn't.